Yeah, and well, for the purpose of you know, if you can motivate yourself, you know, for the purpose of achieving the state of enlightenment, for the benefit of all sentient beings. For that purpose, we have to understand emptiness. We have to understand the Four Noble Truths. Yeah. So that for that purpose we're here. So try to generate motivation for yourself to go over these kind of points as we're going to discuss for that particular purpose of achieving the state of enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. And then, yeah, if we have prayers, do we have? Or, yeah? So if we do the praise to the Buddha as the beginning, and then the Heart Sutra, and then the Lion Face Dakini prayer straight after that. Well, before we cite the prayers, think in front of yourself is Sakyamuni Buddha, surrounded by the masters of India. Yeah, so you can think about the different traditions of the Buddhist doctrine, how they came about in India, and the different masters of that particular, those lineages, and going all the way up to the different countries like Tibet, and Thailand, Sri Lanka, and other Buddhist traditions. So I think the masters of all those traditions are in front of oneself. And surrounding yourself are the countless sentient beings, and they're undergoing individual suffering, and focus upon the suffering, have a wish to liberate them from their suffering. And for that purpose, I'm here. For that purpose, I'm going to lead them in a prayer. And for that purpose, I'm going to attend the session. Yeah. It's important for us, especially, you know, India related to the origin of Buddhism comes from Sakyamuni Buddha, right? So you think when we recite the prayer to the Buddha, think about incredible kindness of the Buddha, that the Buddha dedicated such an incredible long period of time for our purpose, right? To achieve the state of enlightenment for our purpose. So try to reflect upon the kindness of the Buddha where we recite the prayer or praise to the Buddha. And then also try to think about, you know, a little bit about emptiness when we recite the Heart Sutra. And then according to that, yeah. So yeah, besides, so think in front of oneself the Buddha with all the masters of the lineage, of the different traditions, and surround yourself the sentient beings, and you lead them in the prayer, so to say. To the founder, the untranscendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the full destroyer, the complete, perfect, full awakened being, perfect in knowledge and the good conduct, the God who knows the world, supreme God of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the complete, fully awakened one, to the untranscendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, subdue from the psychic land, prostrate me of discovery refuge. To the founder, the untranscendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the full destroyer, the complete, perfect, full awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, the God who knows the world, supreme God of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the complete, fully awakened one, that untranscendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, subdue from the psychic land, prostrate me of discovery refuge. To the founder, the untranscendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the full destroyer, the complete, perfect, full awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, the God who knows the world, supreme God of human beings to be tamed, teacher of human beings, to you, the complete, fully awakened one, that untranscendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, subdue from the psychic land, prostrate me of discovery refuge. When you were supreme amongst humans, you were born in this earth, you played out 7 strides, and then said, I'm supreme in this world. To you, wise then, I prostrate. With pure bodies, formed supremely pure, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain. Flame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best, Lord, to you prostrate. With supreme science, face like a spotless moon, God-like gold, to you prostrate. Dustily like you, the 3 worlds are not, incomparable wise one, to you prostrate. The saving having great compassion, the founding having all understanding, the field of merit that guards like a vast ocean. To you, the one counted dustness, I prostrate. The purity that frees from attachment, the virtue that frees from the lower realms, the one part sublime pure reality, the Dharma that pacifies, I prostrate. Those who are liberated and show the path of liberation, holy field qualified realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you, sublime community and virtue, I prostrate. Homage to the Supreme Buddha, homage to the Dharma refuge, homage to the great Sangha. To all 3 ever devote homage. To all worthy of respect, bound with bodies, as many realms in all aspects. With supreme faith, I pay homage. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly, this is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a vibration, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, drop or bubble, a dream, a flash of light, a cloud, these things and such. To these merits may all sentient beings attain the rank of all seeing, subdue the full faults, and be delivered from the sorrow, perturbed by the waves, aging, sickness, and death. I prostrate to the Arya triple gem. Thus I heard at one time the Bhagavan was dwelling in the vast British mountain in Rajgir, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration, characteristic phenomenon called profound perception. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avisvara looked upon the very practice of the profound affection of wisdom and beheld those five aggregates also empty in nature. Then, to the power of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avisvara, how should any son of the lineage trained who wishes to practice activities of profound affection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avisvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra, Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice activities of profound affection of wisdom, should look upon it like this, correctly and repeating, beholding those five aggregates also empty in nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form, empty is not other than form, and form is not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, composition of factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness, without characteristics, unproduced, unceased, stainless, without stain, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no composition of factors and consciousness. No eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visible form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomenon. There is no element up till, including no my element and mental conscious element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, up till, including no aging and death, no extinction, aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and part. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely and dwell in perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completed path beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in 3 times also manifest complete awakening, unsurprised perfectly, and relies on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurprised mantra, the mantra equal to unequal, the equal, repressed by all suffering, should be known as the truth, since it is not false. The mantra of perfection of wisdom is declared, Tayata, Gata, Gata, Paragata, Parasamgata, Bodhisattva. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration. Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya. Well said, son of the lineage, it's like that. It's like that when you practice profound perfection of wisdom, just as you indicated, you would rejoice. The Bhagavan, having thus spoken, the Venerable Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avisvara, and those surrounding there entirely, along with the worlds of gods, humans, kind of as overjoyed and highly spoken by the Bhagavan. I prostrate to the gathering of the Chinese of the 3 chakras who abide of the holy ocean in space. By the power of clairvoyance and mental illumination, look at practitioner like a mother for a child. Akasamara sasana samara. Akasamara sasana samaraya piyatayata gadagata paragata parasamgata bodhisattva. By the teachings of the 3 sublime jewels, possessing power of truth, may in and out hints be transformed. May they be dispelled, may they be pacified. May all negative forces opposed to Dharma be completely pacified. May the host of 80,000 obstacles be pacified, and may we be separate from problems, harmful conditions to the Dharma, and may all enjoyments be accordance with the Dharma, and may they be auspicious and perfect happiness here and right now. The foundation of all good qualities is the kind and perfect pure Buddha. Correctly devoting to him is the root of the path. By clearly seeing this and applying great effort, please bless me to rely upon with great respect. Understanding the precious freedom of this rebirth is found only once. It's greatly meaningful and difficult to find again. Please bless me to generate the mind that unceasingly day and night takes its essence. This life is impermanent as a water bubble. Remember how quickly decays and death comes. After death, the shadow follows the body. The wheels of black and white karma follow. Finding firm and definite conviction in this, please bless me always to be careful, to abandon even the slightest negativities and accomplish all virtuous deeds. Seeking samsaric pleasures is the door to all suffering. They are uncertain, can be relied upon. Recognize these shortcomings, please bless me to generate a strong wish for the bliss of liberation. Led by the pure thought, mindfulness, alertness, great caution arise. The root of the teachings is keeping the Prajamukya vows. Please bless me to accomplish this essential practice. Just as I have fallen into the sea of samsara, so of all modern migratory beings. Please bless me to see this and train the supreme bodhicitta and be the responsibility of freeing migratory beings. Even if I develop only bodhicitta, into 3 types of morality, I will not achieve enlightenment. With my clear recognition of this, please bless me to practice the Bodhisattva vow with great energy. Once I pacify distraction to wrong objects and correctly analyze the meaning of reality, Please bless me to generate quickly in my mind stream, the unified part of calm abiding, especially inside. Have become a pure vessel by training in the general path. Please bless me to enter the holy gateway of the fortunate ones, the supreme Vajra vehicle. At a time, the basis of accomplishing pure attainments is keeping pure vows and samaya. As I become firmly convinced of this, please bless me to protect these vows and pledges like my life. Then, having realized the importance of the 2 stages, the essence of the Vajrayana, by practicing with great energy, never giving up before sessions, please bless me to realize the teaching of the Holy Guru. Like that, may the Gurus who show the noble paths and spiritual friends who practice it for long lives, please bless me to pacify completely out in innocence. In all my lives, never separate from perfect Gurus, may enjoy the magnificent Dharma, by completing quality stages and paths, may I quickly attain the state of Vajradhara. Sajiböge Yojigmeto Drangrirare Niyen Bali Sangye Jindu Mehdevarni Drogyuna Dajina Jöbarjoidan Gururana Dayami Sangye Kyodan Suni Sonanda Janjo Badu Dani Gyasaji Dagi Jushe Gibe Sona Dola Penje Sangye Doba Jo Sangye Kyodan Suni Sona Janjo Badu Dani Gyasaji Dagi Jushe Gibe Sona Penje Sangye Doba Jo Sangye Kyodan Suni Sona Janjo Bado Dani Gyazoji Dagi Juji Gibe Sona Dola Penje Sangye Doba Sho Shuten To Kangi Tujin Nizabe Tabatam Chipamachir Tamjun Tunjun Tunjun Ba Gotam De La Chatse Long. Yeah, so maybe to start with a quotation by one of the masters of India, and Arya Nagarjuna. Yeah, so Arya Nagarjuna, as you know, is one of the greatest masters of actually South India. You know, his own often indicates many masters of the Nalanda tradition. Quite a few scholars came also from the south. You know? So Arya Nagarjuna was one of them, and Arya Nagarjuna wrote many texts, in particular on emptiness, as you know. And in one of those texts that he praises the Buddha, in chapter number 27 of the Fundamental Wisdom, then Nagarjuna praises the Buddha. So that reads, or we can translate, this means that moved out of compassion, you who eliminate the wrong views, you teacher of the sublime Dharma to Gautama Buddha, I pay homage. Yeah, so that's kind of very interesting quotation. Also, His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, likes this quotation a lot in the sense that it's very profound. Yeah. So what Nagarjuna here is referring to is a particular aspect of the Buddhist teaching, and the teaching on dependent origination. And then Arya Nagarjuna says, you move out of compassion. So that moving out of compassion, meaning that the Buddha is completely motivated with compassion and doesn't make a distinction between friends, or enemies, or those who help him, or those who harm him, you know. So in that regard, the Buddha is beyond this kind of aspects of duality. Yeah? So the Buddha is beyond that and has compassion for all sentient beings without exception. Yeah? And that's actually one of the essential teachings of the Buddha, as we know, right? Ahimsa, or non-harmfulness, or non-violence, you know. So that's a very principle, as we saw in India for many, many generations, as being a very important aspect of life. You know, the ethical discipline of ahimsa, or non-violence, which is very important. And there's also a basic principle of Buddhism, as you know, right? If you cannot benefit others, then at least don't harm them, right? That's kind of principal aspects of the Buddhist doctrine. And not only principal aspect of Buddhist doctrine, of many forms of religion within India, as we know, right? So it's a very strong and important way of movement, and that's you can see that in India there's kind of in the culture, more or less, it is kind of ahimsa. Or of course problems are there, but generally speaking it's a pretty compared to Western countries, the amount of violence is there's a difference there, so there's a part of culture, right, this ahimsa. And then the Buddha went a bit further and then generated this bodhicitta based on great compassion, and having bodhicitta only working for the benefit of sentient beings, and based on great compassion. So great compassion is, so to say, the root of bodhicitta, or the seed, or the substantial cause, as we sometimes call it. So love and kindness and compassion, as we talk about those two, then among the two, then compassion is the seed, and love and kindness is kind of the corporate condition. It's kind of, or the heat and the moisture for growing the seed of great compassion. And that is planted in the fields of equanimity. We need a kind of equanimity to all sentient beings, seeing all sentient beings as equal, in the sense of no distinction between friend, enemy, and stranger. And that's when we just talked about the Buddha doesn't make a distinction. So also we shouldn't make a distinction, because from their side, they're exactly the same, right? Human beings wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. So we all completely the same in that regard. And over time, also friends, enemies, and strangers, they change, right? What you consider now as a friend, you can have an argument, and then it becomes a person you dislike. And a stranger you meet, then initially you have an indifferent feeling towards too, but then after some time you generate a kind of if you maybe sometimes like the person. I always have very good memories of traveling in India by a second-class sleeper, and then you are in the coach, or you share 3 beds, maybe for you and your 2 friends, and then the other side there's 3 Indians there. And then the first question is, where are you from, and what's your name, and what are you doing, and this, that, and then you start talking about reality, and then compassion, and love and kindness, and spirituality. It's very interesting. So many people in the West, even scientists who have traveled in India, they made the same kind of interesting comment, that in India, questioning reality, questioning spirituality is very present, In the West, you won't really train or something like that. You won't really end up in that kind of conversation. Even once I was I had to organize some papers with the SPC of Mysore, and the superintendent's always quite busy, right? They have to put their signature on every piece of paper that's important. So for our visa extension, we had to go also. And one time it was very nice. It was a new SPC, and he called me over and he said, "Oh, you're a Westerner. Why are you a monk?" and and then he said, "Sit down." And then I sat down, and he said, "Everybody out of the office, bring us tea." And then we were sitting for 1 hour, just talking about the mind and talking about the meaning of life. And we did a meditation also together. It's very interesting. So I have always good memories, because India, you can see, it's an innate part of culture, right? The kind of spirituality. In the West, that won't happen very often, something like that. With the height of police here in London, I think he would never ask me to come over and talk about these things, So that means that in India, it's kind of a part of life, right? So that's always a very good memories. And the spiritual richness is quite amazing in India, as we see the Nalanda tradition and the traditions of the Hindu philosophy and Islam and other forms of Jainism. It's very rich, and it's quite harmonious as well. Yes, when I went to Ellora, and Ellora is very, very clear that you have temples, right? Jain, Hindu, Buddhist temple, just next to each other. So also from historical facts, the religions were actually living next to each other, right? As brothers and sisters. Of course, little problems are there here and there, but in general speaking, for such a kind of diverse society, is quite impressive. So the Buddha had this kind of teachings also based on the existing kind of spirituality in India, right? So the Buddha also drew a lot from Jainism and from Hinduism, yeah, as you know, and then came to this teaching of Buddhism, and then saw as compassion was his main motivation to teach it, because we all have this innate wish wanting happiness and not wanting suffering, and we're completely the same in that regard. And that's a law of reality that we all share, yeah, beyond cultures, beyond the color of the skin, beyond religion, right? We all have the same ideas or the same meaning of life, basically. That's what it is, wanting happiness, not wanting suffering. So the Buddha saw that and generated great compassion for all sentient beings, and having a wish for beings to be free of suffering and abide in happiness, yeah? Accomplishing the purpose of our life, so to say. And based on his spiritual path, as you know, it took a very long period of time. Then he became enlightened, and then he taught the doctrine, yeah, or the teachings. Yeah. So then Arya Nagarjuna says in that quotation, you moved out of compassion. Yeah? So that means motivated by compassion. That whatever you do when you have bodhicitta, it will be a cause for enlightenment, and it will be a cause for benefiting others. We mostly moved by afflictions. Yeah? Most of our time is occupied by negative thoughts and destructive emotions, and they move us. Yeah? So the Buddha doesn't have that anymore. He's completely moved out of compassion and bodhicitta. Yeah? Also Chandakirti, one of the other great masters of Nalanda tradition, yeah, he also said, compassion is very important in the beginning, the middle, and the end. That means it brings us into the spiritual part of the bodhisattvayana, right? And it helps us to work for the benefit of beings or while going on the bodhisattvayana, as well as in the end, as we see here, then the Buddha is motivated out of compassion or moved out of compassion. Yeah, so that clearly indicates the aspect of compassion being so important. So there's many texts. Chandakirti, for example, in his supplement to the Middle Way, yeah, the Madhyamika Avatara, there also it makes very clear that although the main subject of the text is emptiness, but in the beginning he praises great compassion. Right? So that's very, very interesting point. So then Arya Nagarjuna praises the Buddha, moved out of compassion. And that's one of the reasons why the Buddha is kind of considered, as we say, a valid person or a person we can trust. Yeah, according to one other master of Nalanda, the great Dharmakirti, right, who wrote a lot of text on pramana, yeah, on logic and epistemology. So Dharmakirti, he also made very clear comments on these points of why the Buddha is actually a valid person. Yeah, in the second chapter of what we have now of the Pramana Vartika, right? So in the second chapter of the Pramana Vartika, then it's been proven that why is the Buddha a valid person? And that's been proven one aspect of his omniscience or his all-knowing mind. And another aspect is motivation of great compassion, we just talked about. Yeah? So it's very interesting in that second chapter, while we can trust the Buddha, yeah, for particular reasons of having omniscience and being completely motivated with compassion. So yeah, that's the first line. You moved out of compassion. Then you eliminated wrong views, the second line of the praise. That means the Buddha never eliminated kind of wrong views of individuals as such, but wrong views of the mind, right? We know the real enemy is actually the afflictions, klaisha, the destructive emotions, right? That's the real enemy. The real enemy is not a person, it's the mind in a particular person that causes the problem, right? So the mind is kind of has to be addressed, and then not only just the mind, but the destructive emotions within the mind. That's the real enemy. So that's why in the second line it says, you who eliminate wrong views. Yeah, and we know all destructive emotions, they are actually not in accordance with reality. They have wrong views, right? They are wrong views. If we get angry at a person, and we walk away. Then we walk away with a mental image of that person or situation, and that's not the person or the situation, right? That's just mentally fabricated. And that mental image is being generated by ourselves in a similar way as we make a distinction between friend, enemy, and stranger. They not, that division doesn't abide in the object, as we say. That means that friend, enemy, and stranger, people in your life, if you classify them into those three groups, is because you classify them, you make a distinction, but somebody else classifies them completely different. Yeah? So that means that they don't inherently exist as friend, enemy, and stranger from their side. It's just our temporary kind of distinction. Oh, I like this person because this person is cherishing my ego, so I like this person, right? And another person who criticizes you or says something to you which you don't like to hear, then you don't like the person because it's not cherishing your ego, it's actually harming your ego. And then you think, oh, how dare this person say this to me? I don't like this person, right? So you make a distinction, but the distinction being made is based on your own kind of conceptualities or your own kind of mental fabrications. Yeah, so all destructive emotions are like that. Yeah, anger overestimates the faults, attachment overestimates the qualities of its object. And with anger, when we get angry at a person, we get angry at a person of this mental image in our mind, not with the actual person. Although we think the mental image is the person, that causes a problem. Yeah, so that means that a person in anger, like 80 to 90% of the image that appears to your mind is mentally fabricated, is not reality. Yeah, and also in psychology, we talk about similar things. Aaron Beck, one psychiatrist from the University of Pennsylvania, in one conversation with His Holiness, he also says that, a person in a rage of anger, 80 to 90% is mentally fabricated. It's not there with the object, So it's very interesting. Very similar, because in Buddhism we say it's a mental image of the person. It's not the person, right? So we get angry at the mental image and we think that mental image is the person. And that mental image is just mentally fabricated with all the faults, which are not with the person. Yeah, so that means it's a wrong view. In a similar way, attachment, we overestimate the qualities of our object of attachment, and then there's never been met, and then there's no satisfaction. Yeah, in the West, people in India sometimes think the West is the best, but actually the West is not the best. That means that I remember when I was in India sometimes, or with my classmates in the monastery with the Tibetans, they have this idea that the West is kind of a pure land. Yeah, but actually it's not really a pure land, Physically maybe a little bit towards, but mentally not at all, because there's so strong, much stronger kind of afflictions. It's true, right? People who are physically better off, then they have more mental problems. Those who are physically a little bit difficult, but mentally they can be perfectly okay, So the main aspect here is kind of Western society doesn't mean by itself it's going to bring happiness. And I see that in India also happening, that there's a lot of development going towards Western culture, and you lose basically, because of that, religion is degenerating. And we see that in Hindu traditions, and Jain tradition actually. Last year, I think, there were more people wanting to become actually again in the tradition as kind of ordained personalities. So I'm very impressed to see that, because generally speaking, there's a decline in interest in spirituality because of more wealth and because of better conditions, right? But that doesn't mean external development is better. We need also internal development, and that's where India is so rich in, and that's what His Holiness Dalai Lama now puts forward as fourth kind of pillar, right, or fourth kind of main aims in life, is to revive this ancient heritage of India, and then mainly focus about Nalanda tradition, but also the other traditions in Hindu philosophy, for example, is very well. It can be very great benefit to humans on this planet. The science of the mind, so to say, very important. Yeah. So yeah, So that means that you eliminate wrong views that all these destructive emotions we have are not in constant reality. Yeah. So anger overestimates the faults which are not there. Attachment overestimates the qualities which are not there, and then there's no satisfaction because you expect a lot from your new iPhone or from your new smartphone or from your new laptop or from the new restaurant around the corner. I remember one time a place of time we had this kind of Italian restaurant just around the corner of Choe Khor Sum Ling. So I thought, oh wow, what an amazing karma. So we just could walk out of the road, turn right, and there it was. What's it called again? I forgot the name. But yeah, it's kind of, and it was good, really good food as well, you know. So it's kind of, but then you can have too many expectations. Once also Venerable Lexok in the guest house there, you know. Yeah, so then we ordered some pizza online, and then it's not according to expectations of the app, you know. So that means that, yeah, Shivam Homes, yeah, that's also, I felt always very at home there because, you know, it's kind of a little family there. And it's very small, for those who don't know, it's a very small kind of guest house with not in many rooms, and it's kind of a homestay almost, yeah. Very, very good food and nice people. Yeah, so always very comfortable. So one evening with Lexo, we ordered some pizza online, and then, yeah, it was not really according to our expectation. So that means that, you know, sometimes you look at the app and you see, oh, wow, this is amazing. Let's order this, you know. But then you build up this mental image, and that has all these expectations, and that's never been met, right? Because that's not the object. That's just our mental fabrication. And that expectation is never met in the object, and that's why it causes a problem, and there's no satisfaction there. And that's with all our objects of desire and attachment. Yeah, if it's food, if it's an event in your life, or dinner, or a holiday, or a new laptop, or mobile phone, whatsoever, car, we have these expectations, but it never really is met. So that means that it's a kind of incorrect understanding of reality. Yeah, and that's all rooted in ignorance, as we know, the ignorance of grasping at true or inherent existence of I and mine. Because all these destructive emotions, anger, attachment, jealousy, pride, and also modern things like anxiety, fear, you know, they're rooted in the concept of I and mine. You know, I'm more important. We always think if we have a problem, our problem is the biggest problem on the whole planet. We're the only one, so to say. Yeah, so we put ourselves in the center of the universe, you know. That means that it's rooted in this I am mine that actually doesn't exist the way it appears. And that's very, very interesting in the Nalanda tradition, especially Nagarjuna, mind-boggling aspects of reality. And that's Indian culture, right? I mean, it's very interesting. You know, a lot of modern scientists will come to the same conclusions. Yeah, David Bohm, who comes to this conclusion by the power of equations, explaining what is the correlation between what happens in quantum mechanics and the theory of relativity. So to bridge those two things together, he comes to this emphasis or hypothesis of wholeness, right? That everything is interconnected, nothing can exist from its own side. And then it's very similar what Adi Nagarjuna says, you know. So then David Bohm says, this self-deceptive thought or this self-identity we have causes us to need security, money, power, wealth, you know, and makes a distinction between us and them. So that causes a problem on different levels in society. And then he goes on, he says this self-deceptive thought or self-identity is actually just a show. It's not really there. But a very convincing show, and that's why people take it as an apparent reality. It's a very interesting quote, you know. Yeah, so I got this quote from the movie Infinite Potential. Yeah, the life and ideas of David Bohm. It's very interesting. So he said them when he was walking towards the end of the movie behind a tree. I thought this, for me, for Buddhist, it's one of the most interesting comments he made in that movie. Many other ones as well, but yeah. So that's one kind of, you know, very intelligent scientist. Yeah, and then if you have Carlo Rovelli, for example, Carlo Rovelli, he wrote books on quantum mechanics, and they're bestsellers, international bestsellers. They translated in 40, 50 languages. You know, so in his new book Helgoland, chapter number 5, he talks about the incredible experience he had when reading Nagarjuna's philosophy, and especially the fundamental wisdom, yeah? The Mulyakarika, you know. So when reading that particular text, he said in this, and he's kind of he's a very well respected scientist, right? He said, this philosophy of Nagarjuna made a very profound impact on me. So it's a very interesting comment, you know. So that means that it's Indian culture, right? Indian heritage, you know. So Arya Nagarjuna, he praises the Buddha, and with this quotation, and then also says that the Buddha eliminated wrong views, right? So the wrong views of this ignorance of thinking there's an I, and thinking there's a mind, and thinking, believing destructive emotions like attachment, jealousy, and pride, right? So the Buddha shows us that that's all not really reality. Yeah? So you eliminate wrong views. You teaching of the sublime Dharma, line number 3, then Arya Nagarjuna praises the Buddha's teachings on dependent origination, mainly. Because if you understand interdependence, you know that things are related. And you prove that there is no concrete existence. There is no inherent existence. There is no I or mine existing from its own side. Yeah, so that's what Arya Nagarjuna praises of the Buddha. If you have that understanding of this, what David Bohm calls wholeness, or what we call in philosophy this kind of interdependence or dependent origination, then you can prove that there is no concrete I and mine to be found. You know? Yeah. So so you eliminate wrong views. You're teaching of the sublime Dharma, right? So reference to the teachings on dependent origination. To Gautam Buddha, I pay homage. So to this kind of lineage of the Sakya clan, I pay homage. You know, so it's very interesting quotation that didn't praise the Buddha because the Buddha looks so amazing or the Buddha has an all-knowing mind, but because of the Buddha's qualities of particular teaching of dependent origination. Yeah, so that's very interesting. So then the Buddha taught many teachings, as you know, yeah, and that's why we have many traditions, even within Buddhism. Yeah, we have the traditions of the Pali tradition and the tradition of the Sanskrit lineages, right? So as you know, in Tibetan Buddhism is basically on the lineage of Nalanda, right? The Sanskrit kind of lineage. Yeah, and also we have the Pali lineages in Thailand and Sri Lanka and all certain parts in India still present, right? Yeah. So that means that after the Buddha's teaching, we had the different lineages, and there were different teachings in the different lineages, and emphasis being put in different ways. So that's also good to know. And then the topic of today, the 4 close placements of mindfulness, is being studied and practiced in all the traditions. Yeah, so that's what I thought maybe a nice topic, and I checked with my other 2 friends who come to Choe Khor Sum Ling, Venerable Leksok and Venerable Namjong, about what topics have you done and what's happening in CKSL. We talk quite. With Venerable Leksok, I'm involved with a lot of projects. We're designing a new course for the FPMT, for example, exploring Buddhism. So that's going to launch very, very soon. So yeah, we in contact quite a bit discussing these things. Yeah, and then on the side, I asked him, "Oh, how's CKSL doing? How's this person doing? How's this person?" So I get some information about you. Yeah. So that means that the 4 close placements of mindfulness is practiced and studied in all the different traditions of Pali as well as Sanskrit traditions. Yeah, but there are differences, of course. Every tradition has its own interpretation. Yeah, the subtler you go, the more difference you will see. The general outline is all the same, the general structure is the same, the meditations are the same, but there are differences there, right? That's even within one tradition of the Nalanda scholars, we see differences. And we also see that in the Pali tradition, right? The more subtler you go, you will see different interpretations that are possible. Yeah? So what are the 4 close placements of mindfulness and why it's important? So the 4 close placements of mindfulness helps us to generate a kind of understanding of dependent origination. That's one important aspect. Dependent origination of the body, dependent origination of feeling, dependent origination of the mind, and dependent origination of phenomena. Yeah, so that means the 4 of body, feeling, mind, and phenomena. Yeah, so there are the 4 points. So close placements of mindfulness, because often we don't think about these points and we have to get close to them. Yeah, so that means we need to remember them. And to remember them, to get close, remembrance is actually what we call mindfulness, right? The mental factor mindfulness actually we can translate as remembrance, as a literal translation. You know? So we remember those points of the body, the feeling, mind, and phenomena. Yeah? So understanding that those 4 points we analyze, because you also need a mental factor wisdom, so to say, to analyze. Yeah? So in the meditation, we analyze with wisdom, right? So there's one mental factor called wisdom. And then throughout our life, we reflect upon it or remember it with mindfulness. Yeah, so that's why they call the close placements of mindfulness. And close because, you know, one aspect, it's easier because it's very close to us, right? The body, feeling, and consciousness, especially the first 3, it's kind of a stage that builds up. It becomes easier to go to all phenomena if you start with simple things as the body, and then feeling, and then other types of mind, and then bring it outward. So there's a sequence there, right? The close placement of mindfulness of the body is easier than the feeling. The feeling is easier than the mind. The mind is easier than phenomena. So there's a sequence there. Yeah. So in the Pali tradition is a very practical kind of meditation, right? Well, in the Nalanda tradition, in the Sanskrit tradition, it actually refers to, beings who are on the paths, who already have kind of renunciation in their mind stream. So that's slightly different interpretation there, but the practices are very similar. Yeah, so if we're interested in the practices, right? We're not here just for the academic knowledge, but how to put it into practice. It's for us most important. Yeah. So then how do we do that? You know? So what I said, you have to analyze in the meditation and then you remember that later on. Yeah? So there's 2 parts in the meditation. First part is to analyze the points, and the second part is to remember the points and to build habituation by doing it again and again and again. Yeah? So how do we do that? So among the body, feeling, mind, and phenomena, there are 2 aspects that are important. In Tibetan we say rangsen, chitsen, means the aspects directly related with, or maybe we can translate as the uncommon aspects of the body, the uncommon aspects of feeling, the uncommon aspects of the mind, and uncommon aspects of phenomena, right? So that's one way we try to analyze. Yeah? So the body has kind of uncommon aspects. The feeling has uncommon aspects. The mind has uncommon aspects. And phenomena out there also has uncommon aspects. Yeah? So in relation with the body, there's something that is different from feeling. And with the feeling, there's something different from other states of mind. And that's different from a table or whatever we take as an external phenomena. Yeah? So there are uncommon points, so to say. That's one aspect. Uncommon points and general points. And yeah, there's a way to meditate first on the uncommon points or the own points of that particular aspect of the 4, right? And then we relate it to general points. Yeah, so that's kind of the meditation. So the general points, so to say, are referring to the 4 Noble Truths. Yeah, the truth of suffering, the true cause of suffering, and then the true cessation and the true paths, right? So mainly it's referring to the first truth, the true suffering, yeah, the truth of suffering. Yeah? And well, in the truth of suffering, as you know, we have different aspects to the truth of suffering. Yeah, we know the truth of suffering has the aspects of what is suffering. Yeah, we have the suffering of change, and the all-pervasive compounding form of suffering. Right? That means that as long as we have karma and afflictions, we have to undergo suffering. Right? So that's the most subtle aspect of suffering, and that's we easily can understand the suffering of suffering, right? Of a sickness, you know, and or headache. Yeah, so it's very easy to recognize it. The suffering of change is a little bit more difficult. I always use an example in talks, having a late, heavy Punjabi dinner, that you really looking forward to a late Punjabi dinner with some ghee and, nice and, nice and full, a little bit of, oil and things inside, right? So you have, and paranta on the side, something like that, So that means that if you have a nice, heavy Punjabi dinner, you look forward to it, especially when you're hungry. That's what His Holiness says, When His Holiness was asked, what is the tastiest food? Then His Holiness says, when I'm hungry. It's true, right? When you're hungry, then the food tastes much better. So can you imagine you're really hungry and then you look forward to this amazing Punjabi dinner, very well made, homemade, very good. And then you go and then, oh, it's so tasty. So you keep eating, and then you eat a bit too much. And that's actually next morning when you wake up, you're not really able to meditate properly because your mind is really dull, because you had too much food and there was too much oil inside, and then it's kind of, you know that feeling, right? So that is what we call the suffering of change. We expect so much, and that's because of attachment, as we just talked about. We expect so much from this Punjabi dinner, but it turns into suffering. Yeah. So when we eat too much, we can still enjoy it, but try to enjoy things within particular kind of boundaries. Yeah. So that means that there's suffering of change. Yeah? So it's a bit more difficult to recognize, but we can understand that. Yeah? And then we have the suffering of the all-pervasive compounding form of suffering, right? So as long as we have karma and afflictions, we have to undergo suffering. Yeah? It's always sitting there underneath the surface. Yeah? So it's very clear in our lives, especially now with dealing with the pandemic. Before it all happens, 2-3 years ago, everything going so easy and everything looks to be under control. We could fly wherever we like to fly and go wherever we like to go, and we thought we have everything under control. But then this whole system collapsed everywhere. No control at all. And why is that? Because of this underlying cause of karma and afflictions, right? That means it's underneath the surface, it's always present. It just has to be triggered by external conditions, and there we go. So that means as long as we have karma and afflictions, there's a potential for suffering. Yeah. So that's the real cause of all suffering. So if you want to eliminate suffering, then you have to eliminate this one, the all-pervasive compounding form of suffering. And that's also the true origin, as we know, of suffering, right? We have the truth of suffering, and the true origin of suffering is karma and afflictions. Yeah. And then to be free of karma and afflictions, we call true cessation, right? And the paths leading towards this freedom of nirvana is called the true paths, right? So that's the Four Noble Truths. So then in the true cause of suffering, the second truth, we talk about karma and afflictions. And karma and afflictions are rooted in ignorance, as we just talked about. I and mine, right? To apprehend the self. We talk about selflessness or atma, right? So Buddha is an uncommon kind of, many forms of world religions or faiths, they accept a kind of an atma or a kind of a permanent self, something like that. Yeah? So in Buddhism, we talk about atma or non-self. Yeah? And we see that this apprehension of a concrete I and mine, or inherent I and mine, is a cause for attachment to arise, is a cause for anger to arise, jealousy, pride, and even things as anxiety, fear, depression. Low self-esteem comes from this self-centeredness or this kind of self-importance, right? Which is based upon this kind of I and mine. So this I and mine, does it exist the way it appears or not, is the question. So I just quoted David Bohm, who says it's just a show, it's not really there. But a very convincing show, and that's why people take it as apparent reality, or people believe it's there. It's true, right? We always think it's there, but if you look, where is the I? Where is Tenzin Namdak? If I look in my body, in my mind, I cannot really find it. Right? So if you call out your own name and then check, where are you? Where is it? So that means that we cannot really find it. And that has to be addressed in the sense of we have to generate a mind that understands this reality, that the I is not really there. Yeah, so that's our focus. And how do we go to that focus? Because in the first noble truth, the truth of suffering, we have 4 aspects of that. Yeah, we have an aspect of impermanence, we have an aspect of suffering, and we have an aspect of empty and selfless. So what we do with our 4 close placements of mindfulness, we generate a kind of understanding of uncommon aspects of the body, uncommon aspects of the feeling, uncommon aspects of the mind, uncommon aspects of phenomena, and then relate it to the Four Noble Truths, right? And then especially the first truth, the truth of suffering, and those 4 aspects of impermanence, suffering, empty and selfless. So what you do is you contemplate, for example, take your body. Yeah. So the uncommon aspects of your body, you just scan what's there, your bones and the different parts on the skin, the different parts inside the body, the different aspects of your organs, of your lungs, of your brain, of your skull, right? You scan basically from the tip of your toes in kind of contemplation all the way up to the crown of your head, and you see what's there. And you generate a kind of habituation to what's inside the body and what's on the surface, So that kind of simple meditation helps us to understand what is actually the body. Because normally in daily life when we talk about things, my body, we think there's something concrete there, right? Some concrete body, and that's why we call it a particular name, based on the name you'll be given, and then it's kind of, Tenzin Namdak, where is this Tenzin Namdak's body? But if you analyze from the tip of your toes, inside and on the surface of your body, and you just scan very slowly from the tip of your toes up to your lower parts of your leg, upper parts of your leg, see what's there, the bones, the veins, the muscles, the skin, and then you go to the lower part of the body and you see the different organs and the lungs and the heart and the different ribs holding it together, and then the things coming out at your level of your shoulders, right? The bones of your arms, and then you go up to your head, and there's your mouth and your teeth and the cheeks and the different parts of your eyes and the brain behind it, So if you scan that back and forth, you become more aware of what actually is the body. There's the own characteristics or the uncommon points of the body, right? So the more you habituate yourself to that aspect, then actually you see, you generate this kind of habituation, right? There's the uncommon points of the body. And then you refer to the Four Noble Truths, and in particular the first point of the truth of suffering. And then you see, okay, the first aspect of the truth of suffering is impermanence. Oh, that's true, because I put in some food, that food gets digested, I'm breathing, right? We're breathing and the heart goes, even when we're sleeping, the heart still pumps, So there's a kind of momentary changing nature of our body is constantly going on. Yeah, we know certain organs, they change over a few years, right? The cells, they change, So if you the first step is you contemplate the body, you scan, what we said, from the tip of your toes to the crown of your head. See what's there. What is actually the body made of? Yeah, you focus on that. That's kind of, you do that with kind of, with a mental factor wisdom, right? You analyze and discriminate, okay, here this part of the body has this part of the body has this part of the body has that. Yeah, you just go from the tip of your toe to the crown of your head. You use the mental factor wisdom to analyze what's there. Yeah? So then you build up an habituation with this process of what's there. Then you go to the general aspects, of the first Four Noble Truths, of the 4 aspects of the truth of suffering. Yeah? And then what you do, you remember those points you just scanned with wisdom. Yeah? So that becomes close placements of mindfulness, right? That means mindful means to remember. So first you build this habit of your body, then you take it out to refer to the 4 aspects of suffering, the first noble truth. So then you see, okay, the first aspect of suffering is impermanence. So impermanence means momentary changing nature. So that means our body is momentary changing, right? So if you look at a picture when you were 16 and you look at a picture in the mirror, then there's a difference there, right? And that difference, didn't come overnight, luckily. If it comes overnight, then probably we get quite freak out. If you wake up and you all of a sudden 40 years older, then it's quite of a shock. They have these apps, you can make yourself older. A few of my classmates, they showed me that once. You give yourself a beard and wrinkles and gray hair and those kind of things. Once, also remember, Tenzin in the early days, when he also came to Choe Khor Sum Ling, then we had the guest house of Mr. Aziz still, remember? The little office. So, and he was there and there was a mirror there. And then Gana looked in the mirror and he's like, mid-80, right? And he never looks in the mirror in the monastery. So he looked in the mirror in the guest house and said, "Oh, I'm getting old." So there's kind of impermanence, right? And that impermanence is there since our birth, right? The moment we came out of the womb, actually the moment we've been conceived, right? The moment the egg was fertilized, right? The embryo starts to grow. At that time already, there's impermanence right there of our body. Right? It grows and then it decays and then we get older and it decays, right? It's not, I know now, past 40, then it doesn't mean things physically are getting better. A few of you probably know that for yourself, for your own experience. If you pass 15, then you can see things are not really the same as before. Exercise or running around or, condition. So that means that things are not going to be better. Unfortunately, things are going to be more difficult the older you get, right? So that's the aspect of reality, impermanence. So then you check your body, right? And then also reflect upon these points of death and impermanence, reflect on the points of momentary changing nature, So that's kind of how we do that with the body. You see that a little bit? You check the uncommon points of the body in relation with what's there. From the tip of your toe, you scan to the crown of your head and back and forth. So you see what's actually in the body. What is actually the body? And then you go to a general aspect of impermanence, because our body is impermanent, our mind is impermanent, feeling is impermanent, phenomena, because compounded things are impermanent, right? So impermanence is a general aspect. You see that? So there's an uncommon aspect of the body and a general aspect. Means general, common with other objects. So that's how we meditate. So you meditate you scan your body, the tip of your toe, crown of your head. They are kind of the rangsen, or the uncommon features of the body. So the uncommon features you analyze. Then you go to the general feature of impermanence. And then you see, it's true. If I look in the mirror and I look at a photograph when I was 16, there's a difference there. The difference doesn't come overnight, that comes moment by moment. So there's momentary change of the body. Right, you see that? So you use there, again, a kind of wisdom to analyze. So it generates a kind of understanding of what our body actually is. You see that? Then you go to the next aspect of the first noble truth, which is suffering. So you see that this body is in this contaminated aspect. So we saw it with a heavy Punjabi dinner, for example. There's nothing in our lives that gives perfect happiness by depending on this body. There's never really a person on the planet who says, now I'm completely satisfied. That's it. You can see people, the richest persons on this planet, what do they do now? They want to go to the moon, to this place where there's only rock, and you have to put yourself in this kind of very difficult, how do you call that? This kind of, you go in the spaceship, and it's very tiring with G forces, and it's not very, probably not very big pleasure. You fly to the moon is a very tiring thing. And then you can see the Earth through a window, you can see on your screen, on your computer, same thing. You know? So people who are very rich on this planet, they want to go to the moon. You know, it's kind of, and then when they reach the moon, they're still not satisfied. Yeah, so if people go to all kind of hardships without getting satisfied, that's what it is, right? Yeah, so that means that as long as you have karma and afflictions, then there's no way you get satisfied. So that's why we strive for nirvana instead. Yeah? So then you reflect upon the uncommon features of the body, right? And then you think it's impermanent, and then you think also it's in the nature of suffering, right? Yeah, it's true, right? Our body is very fragile. It just needs a little bit of a sickness, and you know, it goes, right? Yeah. So then you contemplate of suffering. Yeah. And then it becomes very interesting, because if we have a problem and we can solve that problem, then perfect. If we have a problem and we cannot solve it, then also we shouldn't worry, because we cannot solve it anyway, right? But if we have a problem we can solve, then we should solve it, right? So in a similar way, we see, okay, the problem is here karma and afflictions, right? And karma and afflictions is rooted in this ignorance. So I have to take this ignorance away. So I have to understand what we call emptiness, the sunyata. I have to understand that, right? What is sunyata? What is emptiness? That doesn't mean mere nothingness, but it is this absence of an inherent existence, or an absence of, you know, that I and mine doesn't exist from its own side, independent. That doesn't exist, right? So emptiness means empty of something. Yeah, so it's a kind of sphere of emptiness, being empty of something. Like, you know, the center in Bangalore, you know, is kind of empty of an elephant. You know, so we often talk about there's no elephant in the center, right? So emptiness is always empty of something. It's not nothingness we talk about, you know. Yeah. So, or tiger. I always use elephants, but you can also use tiger or monkey or whatsoever. Yeah. There's no monkeys in Bangalore, I think, but in Dharamsala there are many, and sometimes they come inside the building even. It's very scary sometimes. Yeah. Yeah. Once I almost lost my life. I don't know if I lost my life, but I was chased by 4 of the big ones. I thought I'd lead them out. They were just misbehaving. So I thought I'd bring them out. But then they came after me. Then I went to one room, closed the door, and hoped for the best that one of the dogs came to rescue me. Yeah, but elephants are not in the room. So that means that there's kind of an absence, right? An absence of an elephant. In a similar way, emptiness means absence of inherent existence. Yeah, that nothing exists inherently. Yeah. There is no concrete I or mine that exists inherent or by itself. Yeah, so that's when it and so that we have to realize, because the root of karma and afflictions, we saw karma and afflictions are the direct cause of suffering, right? And the root of this is ignorance, you know? Yeah, just laughing because somebody else laughing about the monkeys. Yeah. So this root cause of suffering is ignorance, you know? So that means that has to be, if you take away the root cause of suffering, then the cause of suffering will be taken away. Yeah, we say karma and afflictions are the direct cause of suffering, and the root is ignorance. So if you take away this root cause, then the direct cause will not come into being. Yeah, that's what His Holiness often indicates. If you think about emptiness like 16 times a day, it looks like afflictions don't arise. Right? So it's very interesting, you know. Because if you think about emptiness, then these concrete aspects of reality, they don't exist, or you see they don't exist the way they appear. If you understand interdependence, and if you understand dependent origination, you see everything is related with each other. There is no place for something to exist all by itself without dependence, right? So there is no I, there is no mine existing all by itself. So we need a reason of dependent origination to prove there's no concrete I, right? You see that? So we need a reason of interdependence which understands interconnectedness, which understands wholeness, which understands this kind of dependent origination, to prove that nothing exists from its own side, right? You see that? To counteract this ignorance. So the tool here of dependent origination is this close placements of mindfulness. Yeah? That you see, you scan your body, as we first do, right? From the tip of your toes, crown of your head, you see what's there. What is actually the body? That helps us to understand there's no concrete body separate from that, right? It often appears in that way. Yeah. Then we take it into account, okay, it's also in the nature of impermanence, yeah, as we saw. Then we also contemplate this nature of suffering because of karma and afflictions. So having that process, using wisdom and analyzing what's in the body, right? What's happening when I'm breathing, you know? What's happening when my heart is pumping the blood around, you know? If you be aware of those things, you combine it with the impermanent aspects of our body, the more you habituate yourself to that aspect of momentary changing nature of the body or the different processes of the different parts of the body, you see there is nothing that exists from its own side among these parts of the body and in this process of impermanence. There is nothing that can exist from its own side. You see that? You know, so that's the kind of a result insight that comes from this close place mindfulness of the body, right? You analyze the different parts of the body and the processes of heartbeat and lung function. You know, you just be aware. That's what it is. It's kind of awareness meditation, first of all, right? And that brings, has many benefits. It just brings kind of peace of mind. It builds more awareness, yeah? But eventually it helps us to solve the root of all the problems, meaning it cuts down ignorance, you know? Yeah? So, because the more aware you are of the physical aspects of the body, the momentary changing nature of the body, then you see there is no I to be found within the process. There's no I to be found within the different parts or the collection of the parts, you know. So that is an incredible tool in understanding emptiness. And so, and then emptiness has been explained in those 4 points of the first noble truth of suffering. We say, what are those 4 aspects of the first noble truth of suffering, as we just talked about? Impermanence, suffering, empty, and selfless. Yeah, so the last 2 points, empty and selfless, refers to the emptiness or selflessness of the person, right? There is no concrete I existing from its own side. So the more you check your body by just seeing the features of the body and seeing that the body is a nature of impermanence and seeing the body as a nature of contaminated aspects of karma and afflictions, that automatically, by the power of that habituation, it will give you the insight there is no concrete I to be found. You see that? Yeah, so in the Theravada tradition, for example, when I was reading, one of my favorite authors is Mahasi Sayadaw from the Burmese tradition, and it's very interesting. Reading his books is a very similar approach, you know. That means that the meditator gets so habituated with this particular meditation of being aware of what's going on into the body, right? That, and then also you take feeling and you take the mind into account, right? Same procedure, right? Same procedure. So then you come to a conclusion and you see the interdependentness of the different parts of the body. You see it's all in the nature of dependent origination, nothing else. So when you habituate your mind strongly to that, you can imagine that the moment the I appears, when we get angry or strong desire rises, or when somebody criticizes you, there's a very strong I that comes up. Yeah. If you're capable of not losing your control and getting angry, so try to say, you know, oh, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. Very nice. Yeah, okay. And then you slowly walk away out of the situation. Yeah, to prevent yourself from getting angry. You know, or you say to the other person, yeah, you're right. That helps sometimes. When people are quite intense and want to point out our mistakes, then the first step is to say them they are right. then they calm down. And then later on we can talk about things. Doesn't mean they are right, but there's just skillful means, right, to deal with the situation. Yeah? So that means that at that time an I arises very strongly. When somebody criticizes you, you say, oh, I'm not like this, I never make mistakes. Yeah. Mistakes are always with others, right? So this kind of I that appears to the mind. Yeah? So that's very important to recognize. Then the more you have contemplated the process of body and mind, you can see actually there is no place in the body and mind for such an I to exist. Right? So that becomes a kind of an incredible, powerful tool in the close places of mindfulness. It proves that there is no self in the sense of a self that exists from its own side. You see that? Yeah. So the more you habituate yourself to your body, the processes inside, and the impermanent aspects of it, the stronger that habituation, the stronger your reasoning is to eliminate this ignorance. It cannot exist the way it appears. Because in logic, we say the I doesn't exist inherently because we are in the nature of dependent origination, right? That's the proof or the reason. So we are in the nature of dependent origination. The more you convince about that aspect, the easier it is to refute that this I cannot exist the way it appears. You see that? So this kind of the syllogism or the consequence we put to prove that there is no concrete I. Yeah, the self doesn't exist inherently because it's in the nature of interdependence or because it's in the nature of dependent origination. So the more you know that you are in this nature of dependent origination, the stronger your proof is, and the power of the mind becomes to eliminate this particular I. You see that? So that's why the 4 close placements of mindfulness is a very simplified meditation. If you just scan your body in that way, it brings more awareness, it brings the mind more calm, and eventually it has the power to oppose ignorance, right? So it's a very powerful meditation, actually. And then Mahasi Sayadaw also says people will, proceed in these meditations, then fear comes. Fear from the sense that there is no I. That I, where we always hold on to since beginner's lifetime, is not there. And then Mahasi Sayadaw said, but the meditator wants to continue in these meditations. So that's very interesting to see that, because in our tradition we talk about similar things, right? That you recognize how the object of refutation appears and use the reasoning of dependent origination to prove it doesn't exist the way it appears. And so this meditation of the continuity or the process of the body, and you can do the same with feeling, Oops. So when you do with feeling, very similar thing, that you sit and you be aware of that. If you sit cross-legged, for example, you feel that your right foot is pressing up towards your left knee, and your left foot is pressing up to your right knee, and your hands are one's pressing on top of the other, and you feel a little bit something in the back. So you start to be aware of the different types of feeling in your body, right? It's a very similar process. Yeah? So that's the kind of close placements of mindfulness of the feeling. And then there's other types of minds, like thoughts, and you just be the observer instead of being influenced by it. Just observe in your thoughts. Just observe, this thought came up because I saw this, or I heard this, or this happened yesterday. So you try to observe the mere consciousness. What's without judgment? What actually is going on inside there in the consciousness. And so you analyze. It gives you a very interesting aspect of the features of the mind and of feeling. Yeah, so there's next 2 points in the close placements of mindfulness that, like our body, our mind and the feeling are very similar. It's impermanent, it changes moments by moment. Yeah? And the more you habituate yourself to this process of coming and going of thoughts, Or sometimes the mind becomes more subtle, sometimes the mind's more coarse, sometimes the mind is less disturbed, sometimes the mind is more disturbed. It's a process, right? So in this process also there is no, which is impermanent, there's also no I to be found. You see that? So these kind of close placements of mindfulness, one great benefit is just it brings awareness, it keeps the mind more calm, There's great benefits there. Afflictions, they don't arise that quickly anymore because you're more aware and you can take action when needed. If you just observe, then you don't have to go into engaging aspect. So there's many benefits of this meditation on close placements of mindfulness, right? But the ultimate benefit is it gives us the reasons of dependent origination. That it's all a process of coming and going, right? And this process of coming and going, when you relate it to an I, then you see there is no concrete I to be found in this process among the different parts of the body and mind, or among the collection of body and mind. There is no really I to be found. You see? So in that way, the close places of mindfulness have many benefits of just merely observing and generating kind of peaceful mind and don't get disturbed too much by thoughts, because you're the observer, you don't engage as such. And so there's great benefits there. And because your mind is more calm, you can deal with problems much better. When we get overexcited or when anger takes over, then the clarity of the mind goes down the drain. The peace of mind goes down the drain. We cannot think properly anymore. And that's why we say things incorrectly when we get angry. And then we regret it later on. And that becomes a problem. So if you practice close places of mindfulness, you be much more aware and you be the observer instead of acting straight away whatever comes to mind. The more you be able to observe, the more in control you are. Because then you think, okay, look, there's irritation. That's the real observer aspect. So if you follow it, it will be not beneficial for me and it will not beneficial for the person. So better keep my mind cool or relax and practice patience, you see? So also in those kind of trainings, these 4 close places of mindfulness bring great benefit because it makes the mind more relaxed, a more observer attitude, and you can make decisions much better because the clarity is there of the mind. You're more in the present than in the past or the future. You learn yourself to observe and be the observer in the present without really having kind of judgment or taking a decision, good or bad or like or dislike, that doesn't arise, right? So there's incredible benefits in this kind of very simple contemplation, just scanning your body, checking what's going on in your mind, checking what actually is feeling, which feeling is where, it's very simplified meditations. We bring great benefit. And then on the long term, it helps you to generate this incredible understanding of dependent origination, right? And you habituate your mind to dependent origination. And then when the I arises, you analyze, it cannot exist the way it appears because the body and mind is momentarily changing. It's in this process. There's parts and collection of parts. It's not to be found. There's no concrete I to be found among this process and among these kind of cause and effect relationships and among the individual parts, neither in the collection of those parts. And so it becomes a very sophisticated aspect that you analyze the special or uncommon features of the body, feeling, and the mind, and later on phenomena, right? And then you bring it into impermanence. You bring it into the light of suffering. You bring it into the light of there is no self to be found. And then it becomes a very powerful tool in our meditations on emptiness as well. So that's a little bit the very short summary on the 4 close placements of mindfulness. So I thought, there's more or less time. So if there's questions, still, it's dinner time in India, as I know, right? Yesterday I was talking with people from Madrid. We do a Lorik course, a course on awareness and knowers with people from Madrid. And same, they also have always late dinners. So when I went to Spain for the first time, it's very similar to a very relaxed atmosphere, like we have in India, you know, easygoing. yeah. So I also enjoy that a bit. Yeah. Okay, so if there's any questions regarding these points or other things, then feel free. Otherwise, we can. Yeah. I just missed, because otherwise we would now go to one of the restaurants around CKSL in the early days, right? And have something to eat and have a cup of tea or something like that. That's what I miss, Indian chai. It's very difficult to get around here. Yeah. Some people, they try to make it, or I tried to sell myself one day, but yeah, it's not really like the real Indian chai.
Geshe.
Yeah.
Tashidele Geshe, Emani Jampa Samo.
Yeah. Your question?
From ILTK. Tashidele.
Yeah.
And long life to you, Geshe. I want to make a question. They both, I mean, the Four Noble Truths and the Four Placements of Mindfulness are in number of 4. Is there any reason?
Because less will not cover them and more is no need. That will be the standard answer.
Okay.
Because, I mean, it's kind of, it describes everything, right? It describes what is suffering, it describes the cause of suffering, and it describes how to get out of suffering, and how to be without suffering, how to do that. So it's a incomplete kind of aspect, you know? And the first 2 are cause and effect related, and the last 2 are cause and effect related. So it teaches us basically how we go around in samsara and how to get out of it. The first 2 truths talks about how we bound in samsara, right? And the last 2 truths teaches us how to get out of it. So it's kind of complete. Yeah, it's kind of a complete package. Yeah, and the number, I don't know. It just came to be number 4 because then it's complete, right? Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Geshe. So there is no particular reason for that. That's what you mean.
Yeah, because it's just complete, right? It's just a complete kind of teachings for what is samsara and how we are born and how we get out of samsara, right? So there's many numbers, you know, if you have the 12 links, for example, that proves also in a similar way how we are born in samsara, and if you reverse them, how to get out of it. But the Buddha didn't say, oh, 12 is a nice number, let's see to make something for 12. Not like that. It just be a number of 12. And Four Noble Truths, same thing. It's not, oh, 4 is a nice number, so let's see what you can fit in. It's the other way around, right? You come to a thing and it is 4 or 12 or, yeah. So the number is not really important, but the content is important, right? Yeah.
Okay, because I thought that the 4 placements of mindfulness are linked with the Four Noble Truths because they have both 4 as a number.
Yeah, but not because of the number of 4, right? They are linked.
Okay.
You just saw, yeah.
Thank you, Geshe.
Welcome, thank you.
Geshe, can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure, Dipti, go ahead.
Geshe, when you talk about scanning the body, or when you talk about meditating on mindfulness, and especially in a way where we can understand that ignorance is the root cause of all suffering. One can get it in a way where one understands it. But let's say there is in terms of practically looking at real life situations that one may be facing, then we use analytical meditation, right? So Geshe, we understand maybe that, okay, this is actually, my ego is acting up, I'm getting offended and things like that. But from there, how does one, go towards emptiness? Emptiness. How does one go towards even identifying that this is actually my ignorance? Yeah. Because logically it stops somewhere. Okay, it's my ego. But then from there, where does it go? I mean, how do you bring it to...
the first step is recognizing how the I appears, right? Yeah. And then recognize how the I appears, and then also think your problem or everything in life, how does it appear? It appears often very concrete, existing from its own side, right? But it's not really like that. So you can have different interpretations on the time of the problem, or when you face an issue in life. then the best thing is, of course, keep your mind cool and practice patience before losing it, right? So that's, at that time, important. Then where we're not in daily life, try to contemplate these things. Yeah? So in the early morning, try to do this meditation for close placements of mindfulness. And then that's what mindfulness is all about, is remembrance, right? So the stronger your habituation is in the mornings, if you do that every day for a few minutes, right? Then throughout the day, you try to remember, like every hour or so. We just take a few breaths, relax, and then see the body, see what the body is doing, see what you're feeling, what the mind is thinking. So you build up throughout the day kind of habituation, right? So if you build up throughout the day this habituation, yeah, then it becomes stronger and stronger. So then the next time an eye comes up or a situation comes, you'll be much more mindful and aware. You'll be more observer. For example, with anger or irritation, in the beginning, it just takes over, right? But the more you have this observing aspect, then you be able, at a certain point, you'll be able to see, oh, look, now I'm getting irritated, now I have to be careful, so you become more aware. Yeah, so that's why we have to take it into our daily lives from the point of view, remembering it. And the remembrance only comes when we have a foundation built up in the mornings or something like that, right? We need a kind of foundation to build to bring this kind of imprints in the mind or potentials in the mind based on reasoning and conclusions. Yeah, so the 4 close placements of mindfulness you do in the mornings, you concentrate on it. That puts imprints in the mind, and the more you do it, the more imprints are planted, the easier it will become to remember it, right? That's just a matter of habituation patterns, So then the more you'll be able to remember it throughout our lives, then, of course, realize that emptiness is later, slowly later on, but at least we be more the observer and we see, oh, look, now I'm getting irritated, actually. And then with the practice of patience and other activities, then we can actually deal with those problems at that time. Yeah, so it means it has to be a combination of what we do on the cushion, so to say, in the morning, and then we try to remember it throughout the day. And the stronger the habituation is, the more mindfulness there is, the more awareness there is, and the more observer you are. Then you get less influenced by these minds. And then over time, you be more aware and you say, oh, look, this anger is coming up, and you be complete control, you don't have to follow it. And then also, you will be able to see how the I appears, right? And to meditate on emptiness when you have a conversation with somebody else, which doesn't go very well, that conversation, it's very difficult to contemplate emptiness, right? But at least we try to be calm at that time, and then later on when we have time, try to analyze what happened, how did I react, and learn from that kind of experience, and then see how the I appears and analyze, does it exist in that way or not? It's a very slow process, right? It takes a few decades before moving in a particular direction, but it's definitely possible and it's definitely working. It's just a matter of time and effort. Yeah, you have to put a little bit of discipline is needed, right? Yeah. Next one. Oh.
Hi, good evening, Geshe. So,
hi.
My question is, I do my practice regularly. I try to meditate on emptiness and do my bit. I'm trying to be mindful of the selflessness of myself and others in my daily interactions, right? But sometimes even an innocent statement from my side without any wrong intent can get misconstrued by the other person.
Yeah,
and the other person feels hurt or takes things personally. Typically, I end up clarifying, but the clarifications sometimes don't suffice. So I kind of find myself in a knot, like, how do you handle this kind of a situation?
So what is happening there is very interesting because that person has a particular view, right? Which is not reality, because it misunderstands reality. But it believes that view. That's what we just talked about, these mental images, right? So that's the problem. Yeah. So then when we try to solve it, to bring more clarity or explain, and they don't want to listen or they don't understand, then the best thing we should do from our side, we cannot change people's mind, right? We can only help in that direction. Yeah, we cannot change the world, but we can only try to start with ourselves. Yeah, so that means that whatever situation you have in your life to try to solve a problem, try to have a good motivation. Why you do it? For the benefit of self and others, right? So you have this good motivation, then you do it the best way you can. Then it will happen that it doesn't work out the way we planned. And then you should just think, okay, I try to do my best. I make a prayer that in the future I will be really able to solve all problems without exception. Yeah, so because we cannot change the world, but at least then we have a very positive touch to it. Because we cannot change it anyway, that's what Shantideva says. If you have a problem and you cannot really solve it, then also you shouldn't worry about it because you cannot solve it anyway, right? So, but at least have a positive attitude towards it, meaning you generate good motivation, you do your best, right? And then you dedicate or you make a prayer in the future. May I be really able to do this? Then you create a cause for solving problems, right? Yeah, that's more constructive. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Geshe.
Okay, welcome. Yeah, Rafi. Yeah.
Geshe.
Yeah, hi.
Hello. Geshe, my question is that the 5 aggregates, finding the emptiness of 5 aggregates are looking very similar to the 4 mindfulness, finding the emptiness in the 4 mindfulness practices.
Yeah.
So what is there? But there is a difference. So what is, are these 2 similar, or there are these 2 different ways of finding emptiness, Geshe?
It's very similar, but with if you relate it with the 5 aggregates or these 4 points of body, feeling, it's already 3 are there, right? Body, feeling, and mind, right? So consciousness. Yeah. So actually, the 5 aggregates are in here because the body aggregate is there, feeling is there, right? So discrimination and conceptual factors are within the mind. Right, so all the 5 aggregates are included within these 4 close placements, especially the first 3, right? Yeah, so they are there. And in a similar way, also with the 5 aggregates, you can contemplate the same as we just discussed, right? As seeing what's going on in the body, what's going on in feeling, what's going on in discriminating factors, what's going on in compositional factors, and what's going on in consciousness. So it's a similar kind of approach, yeah. But it's just here because it's to see the process of the body is easier. And to see the process of feeling is easier, right? And then discriminating factor, compositional factors, and consciousness is very similar. So probably that's why it's in one group, right? In the 4 close placements of mindfulness, feeling. Yeah. Feeling because body, feeling, and the mind. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, it's very similar. You can, for your body, or for the 5 aggregates, you can do the same contemplation, right? Of the own uncommon features or aspects, and then go towards the aspects of the 4 Noble Truths of impermanence, suffering, and empty and selfless. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Laura. Yeah.
Thank you, Geshe. My question is, when we do a close placement of, say, the body, and you do all the scanning, how do you stop your mind from saying, well, I've done all the scanning, I've done all the analysis, even at subatomic levels, this body isn't actually here. There is no body.
Yeah.
This body does not exist.
Then you put a needle in your hand, or you put your head against the wall, right?
Yeah, but it could be habituation. That could be habituation.
You see there is a body, right? But the body is not really there, means there is no inherent body. Right, but there's definitely feeling, because you can feel, right, the pressure of your legs or on the chair, or where you see there is a feeling of the body, right? So those aspects are there. But the clue is to see there is a physical body, and there's change, there's process, there's parts and a collection of parts, but there's no inherent from its own side existing body. And that's what we come to the conclusion at. So that doesn't exist, right? An inherent body or an inherent self. But conventionally we're talking, conventionally we're feeling, and so that's there. Yeah, it's just kind of, it's in one way, it's kind of, if you see there's body is not really there, meaning the inherent body or the picture we have of this inherent body, that's not really there. But the conventional there's a body, right? Conventional there's a mind, and the conventional there's thought process. And conventional we're thinking, and conventional we're talking, right? Remare. You saying to that, remare, yes or no?
Yes, but conventionally, I don't really understand much the difference between conventional truth and ultimate truth, because they seem more contradicting to me rather than complementary.
Yeah, so that's why I have to study a bit more, and especially tenets. Then we're going to talk about a lot about the two truths, right? Conventional and ultimate truth, because they prove each other. Yeah, so conventional truth, meaning on a conventional level, there's cause and effect relationships, right? Which proves that nothing can exist from its own side. Same with our body, on a conventional level, there's cause and effect relationships of impermanent nature of change, right? And because of that cause and effect relationship, which is a conventional truth, nothing can exist from its own side. And that nothing exists from its own side is an ultimate truth, right? Emptiness. So it's two sides of a coin, basically, of one nature, so to say. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Marilyn. Yeah. Oh, now more people come. Yeah. Yeah.
Geshe, I have a question.
Could you repeat the name of the author in the Burmese tradition that you referred to?
There's a book that's been published a few years ago by Wisdom Publication, and it's called Insight Meditation by Mahasi Sayadaw from Burma. Mahasi Sayadaw, Insight Meditation. It's quite a thick book. It's kind of what we call in our tradition kind of a lamrim, right? Lamrim structured, similar book, yeah. Published by Wisdom, maybe 3-4 years ago, maybe 5 years. Yeah, you got it? Yeah. It's very interesting because in that book, because when I was reading it, I was just, because I'm always interested in the view, you know, all the other things are very, very similar, but the view is interesting. So I was just reading through the book and pinpointed down a few very interesting paragraphs. Yeah. Yeah, very, yeah. And there's also, oh, no, what did I say? Did I say insight meditation or not? No. That's true. There's one very brief one that is called Insight Meditation, and the other one is Manual of Insight. Anyway, I can, if I have time one of these days, then I send you the link of the book somewhere. I can find for you. Yeah. Is that better? That's maybe better. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Rajesh.
Good evening and President Geshe.
Yeah.
I've one question. I don't know whether this is related to, very much related, and I'm not able to put the question more perfectly because I'm not able to. The thing is, I was wanting to know, when you, what you tell that, doing this awareness meditation, which you were telling just now. So, in that, you don't have to take any object in this, meaning where we do this in your breathing meditation. So when we are doing the full body scan, so is this not an object? One thing, and meaning I'm not very clear about the awareness which you are telling, meaning.
Yeah. So you need an object, right? Meditation doesn't mean just abide in nothingness. That's nothing to do with meditation. Meditation, every meditation you do, awareness meditation, calm abiding meditation, whatever meditation you do, you always have an object, right? So that means that the object here is your body. And you analyze your body with the mental factor wisdom, for example, right? In order to understand what's going on. Yeah, so that's an awareness meditation, but uses an object. Yeah, you cannot meditate without an object. Yeah, you cannot meditate on nothingness. That will not be of any benefit at all, right? So we need objects in our meditation. So in this case, the body is object with the first level of close placements of mindfulness, and then you analyze that, and then and then you use the mental factor wisdom, and you remember that with mental factor wisdom, mental factor remembrance, which is actually mindfulness, and that brings awareness, because then you learn how to be in the present by just observing. So if you're in the present and just observing, what are you observing? That's the object, right? So that means that this kind of awareness meditation or being in the present meditation, that mind that is in that meditation has an object, being in the present of your body or being in the present of your mind, right? Yeah. I hope that helps, Rajesh. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Geshe.
Okay. So then we stop. Maybe we're a bit over time. Oh, yeah. The boss. Yeah.
Geshe, so you said a statement which said that His Holiness said that if you think about emptiness 16 times a day, afflictions don't arise. I just wanted to confirm whether that was the.
But then you have to, have a certain understanding of emptiness, of course.
Of course.
Yeah, but it's true, because if you contemplate emptiness, then the concrete aspects of reality fades away, right? And all these destructive emotions, anger, attachment, jealousy, pride, they use these building blocks of I, me, them, I need this, I need that. How dare this person say this to me? So if that concrete aspects of these points are not there anymore, then these afflictions, they don't have any roots to grow. You see that? Yeah. So that's the meaning behind it.
Yeah. So that's just one more quick question. So I went for a Mahasi Sayadaw retreat in Lumbini last year, which was for around 5 weeks, and I was only one of the only participants there. So for those 5 weeks, my mind was amazing. It went silent, and the mindfulness grew, and the potential grew, and all of that. And when I left that place, unfortunately, I had to leave. It didn't take me 3 days or just 2 days to just come back to my normal self.
Yeah.
It's quite. Yeah.
I mean, we all have that, right? If you do a particular retreat, then in retreat, the conditions are much better and things go much better, right? But the clue is to keep at least the continuity of certain practices to do at a daily basis. And then there's a challenge, because we have more influences from outside than being in retreat. Yeah, so of course it's different in our daily life, but that doesn't mean it's not impossible to accomplish similar things down the line. It's just a matter of fact of habituation and some effort. Yeah, so that means if you on a daily basis do regular meditations on these points, then over time you will change. It's not exactly the same as being in retreat, and that's for everybody. For me also, when I'm in retreat, the mind is much, much better than out of retreat, right? So, because the conditions are better, But that doesn't mean, to a certain extent, we can train and become better in day-to-day life than before, right? So don't value it in relation with retreat, but value it with how you was before and see the change. And then there's progress, for sure. Not very fast progress, but over time, definitely there's progress coming. Yeah, it's just a matter of fact of habituation and effort. That's what it is.
Thank you, Geshe.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, it's over time, but that normally happens always quite often. I remember when we were in Bangalore. Yeah. So thank you very much. I feel a little bit kind of the old feeling comes back of my friends in India, and many places. I have many friends in India, and Bangalore, and Delhi, and Dharamshala. Yeah. So thank you very much for letting me be with all of you. And then we probably meet again, I suppose. Yeah.
Geshe, I'm sorry. There was a guy who couldn't get the mic off. Could I ask you just one question? This guy actually wanted me to ask you. He says, I know a person who has attained enlightenment, and he is a guru to many disciples. He will teach the path to enlightenment instantly when someone approaches him and asks him for it. My question is, does Buddhism has the same approach, or is there any method to make him train and then give him the path?
There's no shortcuts to enlightenment. That's what His Holiness once said during a public talk in Bangalore, actually. And people are asking for shortcuts. And then His Holiness says, unfortunately not. Because we know to change our mind is not easy, right? Just common sense logic. So that means you cannot have one pit instruction and then over a weekend or a few weeks you achieve enlightenment. You can get a little bit of an insight maybe, but enlightenment, we talk about something that you have eliminated all destructive emotions together with the seeds, right? So just to deal with a little bit of anger in our lives, we know how long that takes. So there's no kind of magic pill, unfortunately. If there was a magic pill, then the Buddha will already give it to us, So it will take time. Yeah, and also in this kind of advertisement or whatever you see, depends on how is enlightenment being defined. If it's just defined on having some insight in awareness, then of course that can be done in a few weeks' time, right? But full enlightenment, that's as we define it in Buddhism the Buddha took 3 countless eons. Yeah, so if we want to achieve that in a few weeks, then it's probably a bit difficult. Yeah, so we have to have a long view, a very vast vision, because otherwise we get discouraged, and then, but it can be referring to maybe an insight of awareness or something like that. And of course, that you can produce right after some intense training. Yeah, as you just indicated yourself in your retreat, that you get some feeling of things, but that doesn't mean that's enlightenment, right? It's just kind of just an awareness. It's just a mental factor. Yeah. Cesar, that's it. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you, Geshe-la. Thank you so much. Thank you.
And then, hope to see you soon in reality.
Yes.
Again. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Shantila, for the kata.
Thank you. Thank you, Geshe-la. And we hope to see you soon here in Choe Khor Sum Ling very soon, actually.
Yeah. Let's hope.
Yes, we actually, you can see we've already run out of time. It just shows that we don't want to let you go. So thank you once again. Thank you for the teachings. Very profound.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah. And then, we'll meet again. Yeah. Yes. Thank you so much. And then make strong prayers. And as His Holiness says, do Tara mantra a lot, right? Especially with the pandemic. And because that's a situation we cannot control and we cannot change. So the best thing to do then is not to worry about it too much and do something in the form of a prayer or kind of, that at least you create a cause for it to stop, right? So that's why it's important to, as Holiness recommended many times, to do Tara mantra, right? The 10-syllable mantra or practices. Okay, so thank you very much. And then maybe you just do a brief dedication, just the 2 bodhicittas, maybe, and spreading of the Buddha Dharma and long and healthy life of His Holiness, and never be parted in distant future lifetimes from people like His Holiness Dalai Lama. Dagi jine sabha gewa di tendan doa gyunda gamba gewa jason lozan raba yi tempe ningbo ringdu selje sho gangre rawe korwe zingam so pendan dewa malu jongwe chenre zigwan tenzin gyatso yi shape shite badu tengyu janju semjo rinpoche magye pana gegu gewa nyamba meba yang gone gonde belwa sho toni tawa rinpo Magye pana gegu gewa nyamba meba yang gone gonde belwa sho gewa gunde yanda lama tame jogi pela lonje sarang langi yunde razo ne doje changi ko banyu to sho. All right, Dhanabat, thank you so much. See you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Geshe-la.
Thank you, Geshe-la.
Thank
you, Geshe-la. Thank you.
Thank you.
Teach us again and again, Geshe-la.
Yes, Geshe-la.
Thank you, Geshe-la. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Geshe-la. Thank you.